Scoop Nation. You are listening to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, November 3rd. I am your host, Ryan McClincy, and on today's episode, I will be joined by the one and only Nevadabuck to discuss our initial reactions from last night's college football playoff rankings show. I will highlight some of the talking points and takeaways from the media session this week with Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, and Brian Hartline. And if you're a member of the website, then you've likely seen the latest nugget from Nevada. So we'll cover a little bit of that and some of the details around the run game and how this team can turn that around, as well as give our predictions for the game this weekend and how the weather may play a role in what actually happens. Before we get started, though, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content from the entire team here at Buckeye Scoop. All of which is always available, of course, at buckeyescoop.com. So check out the website and become a member today. And with that, let's welcome Nevada to the show. All right, welcome, Nevada. How you doing, man? It's been a while since I've had you on here and had the opportunity to actually talk to you. So how's it going?
It's going really good. Excited. It survived Penn State week, survived the first college football playoff poll announcements, and getting ready for Northwestern, which is always an interesting game to me. I always find this game interesting no matter what. So it's a very, very exciting time of the year. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, it's definitely few things to talk about after this past weekend's game. I know we had kind of talked through a lot of this before we started, but I'm excited to really dig into some of the content today, the reactions from the college football playoff show. I think there's some questionable things that the committee released there, but really want to dive into to this week's nugget that you posted. If you haven't already checked, be sure to check out buckeyescoop.com on the Ask the Insiders board. All of the nuggets here from Nevada, especially this one this week, which was particularly juicy in my opinion. We'll kind of cover a little bit of that, but I'm excited to dive into everything here with you. I think you definitely have some strong opinions this week.
Yeah. No, it's. I think we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot
Yeah,
about this team through 8 weeks. We've learned a lot about the program, and let's get after it.
absolutely. So the college football playoff show, first week, we all know first week of these rankings is kind of, it's going to change. We have a number of games, especially this weekend, that are going to kind of eliminate some of that, and everything's going to play out the way that it needs to. But you had Tennessee at 1. I don't think there's much kind of dispute there. Ohio State at 2, Georgia at 3. Again, I think you could probably move those around in whatever order you see fit, and I think most people would probably say, yeah, that's probably true. But 4, Clemson over Michigan, obviously over Alabama, 5 and 6 respectively, and then even Alabama over TCU. I thought they would have TCU in at least the 6th spot. Being undefeated, playing 4 ranked matchups, but they're obviously valuing Alabama and what they've done or haven't done, I guess, over that. So just what was the one thing I think that, or you think that stood out the most from what the committee put out last night?
Well, I just think you just have to think about these things. There's basically just bracketing teams right now, and I really don't get too worked up about the polls this early. I know you don't either. It's one of those things where the Tennessee Georgia thing is going to kind of resolve itself. The Alabama thing is going to kind of resolve itself. The Michigan Ohio State thing is going to kind of resolve itself. So I think right now. What's the only thing that I found interesting, as you highlighted, was Clemson over Michigan, which I thought that was semi-curious, but I think the reality is, as you're looking at the way that this thing's shaping up right now, you're going to have 2 SEC teams, Clemson and Ohio State, in the Final Four, which sounds kind of familiar to people, and that's probably the best argument for expanding the playoffs, is that you have the same 4 teams make the playoff every year. And I think this is the way this thing's shaping up. It could be that way. I think what could be really interesting, and I've found this scenario just fascinating, is what if Michigan loses a close game to Ohio State, final game, and a 1-loss Michigan team with their only losses to, say, a number 2 or number 1 Ohio State team, do they slip into the playoff? And could they conceivably slip them in at 4, Ohio State at 1, and have the first round of the playoff be a rematch of Ohio State Michigan?
Yeah.
How much fun would that be? So no, I think there's some really some interesting scenarios. But again, great weekend of college football ahead of us, and a lot of questions are going to be answered. And it's always interesting when number three is playing number one, and
Hmm.
number three is favored by over a touchdown against number one. So I guess it shows you how much the odds makers think of the polls.
Yeah, right. That's not an indication, then I don't know what is. I've always been curious why that wasn't a factor really in any of the rankings, or at least not a bigger factor, I guess, in any of the rankings. How do these teams, or who is the odds-on favorite on a neutral field, or when they would actually go head to head, who would actually be the favorite to win that game? Obviously, this weekend Georgia's favored over Tennessee, so it is a little bit strange to me that they would have had that, or at least had it, even with Ohio State in the middle of both of those teams there. But yeah, it's definitely a question to ask. I think the bigger, 4 through 7 spots, those, you could probably make the argument for Michigan. I would over Clemson. I haven't seen enough of Clemson to really warrant them being at 4. But to that point, yeah, one loss Michigan and a close loss to Ohio State. Would they get in at 4? I mean, a lot of it depends on, what does TCU? Does TCU drop a game? Do they lose at Texas or at Baylor potentially? LSU, Ole Miss, how does that play out? Does LSU beat Alabama this weekend? Does Ole Miss beat Alabama next weekend? And there's a lot of games to still be taken care of. And, there's a battle out west too with the Pac-12 and having a one-loss potential Pac-12 champ. But I mean, I don't know that you could keep out Michigan if they, play Ohio State really close and end up losing that on like a last second field goal.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's, the Michigan thing. And then, Michigan would have the benefit of missing the Big Ten championship game. So that would, kind of the end of their regular season.
Yeah.
They'd be sitting there with one loss and, the best loss of all the one loss teams. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. These things generally work themselves out. And I think this season will be no different. I thought that this season was going to be topsy turvy with some crazy twists along the way. We haven't seen full madness. We've had kind of partial madness,
Hmm.
but I think this weekend, some of the madness could return, and you might see some upsets and some crazy football. So I'm looking forward to it. I just want us to survive against Northwestern, have nothing
Hmm.
weird happen, and let everybody else kind of knock each other off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm keeping an eye on number 16 there. They're playing that Illinois. They're playing that Ohio State 2014 vibe. Potential to get a win over Michigan late before the game happens. Make it to the Big Ten championship. Do they get a win over Ohio State, and then do you have a one-loss Ohio State team and a Illinois Big Ten champion team? It's possible. Unlikely, in my opinion, but one to keep an eye on for sure. It's definitely possible. They've proved me wrong all year, and it wouldn't be surprising if they continued to do that, in my opinion. But they got a long way to go for sure. Anybody
Absolutely.
outside of kind of those top 7 that you're looking at and saying, they could potentially get that backdoor, either an SEC championship game like an Ole Miss or an LSU, or anybody in the Pac-12 that you would expect could make that leap as well.
Well, USC is always an interesting one, just because I was surprised to see them as highly ranked as they were in this poll. They had them ranked, I think it was ninth,
Yep,
and
9.
UCLA at 12. So they obviously are fairly highly regarded, so they could be something to keep an eye on. A lot of it's about reputation, and clearly USC's got that kind of
Hmm.
reputation with the committee, and sitting at 9, as you said, not out of the realm of possibility. Teams have come from way farther back than that, evidenced by Ohio State in 14. So yeah, USC would be my kind of darkest of dark horses to try to slip their way into the college football playoff.
I would gladly accept a Lincoln Riley matchup in the playoff as well.
Absolutely.
Hasn't performed too well to date. But yeah, it was definitely, first week. A lot's going to change this week, next week, over the next month or so, of college football. There's a lot of key matchups coming up. So looking forward to kind of seeing how everything shakes out and ultimately what we end up having here come December. But as we had earlier this week, there was a media day from Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, and Jim Knowles, as usual, giving their kind of thoughts on the Penn State game. I know you've have some strong opinions on what came out of that, but we had the post on BuckeyeScoop.com as well, so some more detailed kind of breakdown of the media day session and what some of the key takeaways are. But from what you saw or what you heard from Ryan Day and team, what was the biggest takeaway? I know they talked a lot about some of the injuries. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is heavily favored by the staff to come back to the team at some point this year. So that was a promising thing. But, we've heard a lot of those same things over the past few weeks, and I don't know necessarily what to believe anymore.
Well, I think a couple things. One, everything I'm hearing is that Jackson Smith and Jigba will be returning this year to play. He had, when the official line from Ohio State was that he hadn't hurt anything and he was just on a pitch count and he was there. We knew that he was down to see Dr. Andrews down in Florida. Had some work done. The good news is that came out. There's nothing structural. There's nothing torn. It's just a matter of rest, rehab, and pain tolerance. So fully expect to see him back this year, hopefully by the Michigan game. I think that might be the most optimistic scenario right now, but fully expect to see him back. Everybody at OSU expects to see him back, and Jackson expects to see him back. So I think that's certainly good news and trending positively. I think the thing that was interesting to me about the press availability was at this point, Ryan Day almost gets indignant when anybody asks him about the problems that we can all see, which are in the running game right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's got the OSU media so buffalo that he can say anything up there, and they just sit there and nod and just don't really challenge him on it or don't really go at him on it. And it was very interesting. I think one courageous reporter asked him about it, and he just kind of shot it down, dismissed it, said, we don't have any problems. We're totally efficient and we're great." And it's an issue right now, and
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to talk about it. Last year I had to sit there and listen to just bad take after bad take about if you only would fire the position coach, all the problems would go away. And if we get this new guy in and he's energetic and he'll be able to point and say, we're going to run here anytime and it'll be just fine. And his daughter will be able to know that we're running and they'll run every time. And let me tell you what, last year, even after the debacle up in Ann Arbor, even after the Rose Bowl, we averaged 5.54 yards per carry for the season, for the entire season
Mm-hmm.
last year. This year, we haven't played Michigan yet. We haven't played the teeth of our schedule. We're averaging 5.39 yards per carry. Our success rate is lower than last year. Our everything by every metric, our running game is not as good as it was last year when the much maligned tackles playing guards and Stud was sleeping in the meetings and all that stuff. We're worse running the ball. We are
Yep.
worse running the ball, but nobody wants. It's like the emperor has no clothes. Nobody wants to really admit that. And I think finally, Day is kind of getting it, and I think Kevin Wilson is the guy to really be delivering that message. And I think you're going to see more slam tactics. I think you're going to see more kind of traditional downhill running, fullback oriented, leading the way type of running. And Trey Henderson's best when he runs violently to a spot, and that's what he does. He's a very violent runner. He's a straight line guy, but he's not straight line with no will. He's not Brandon Sane. I heard somebody compare him to Brandon Sane, and that was such a bad comparison. But he's a slasher, and he's not a guy that's best to go up in the inside and try to pick a hole and try to. He's
Mm-hmm.
best to tell him to run through the 7 hole really fast and get through there, and he can do that. And right now, we are lining up. The other teams know we're running. They are run blitzing, covering every gap, outnumbering us. We have no constraint, and they are blowing up our running game. Half of our running plays last week were hitting the backfield before they ever had a chance to cross the line of scrimmage. That's half of the plays. And to say that we don't have a problem, that's a problem. And I think Day is getting into it, but I thought his press conference performance yesterday was it was embarrassing. I mean, it was just like, how dare you ask about the running game? Come, Ryan, we all see it. We
Yeah.
all see what's going on. So come on, let's who's zooming who now? Come on.
Yeah, especially just in the offseason. I mean, there was such a strong emphasis on wanting to be dominant in the run game, too. And, I think for the first few weeks, maybe after the Notre Dame game, you started to see, okay, yeah, they're creating massive lanes. But level of competition was pretty bad over those weeks too. And now that you go up against teams that are better positioned and better, equipped to stop the run, like a Penn State, like an Iowa, like a Michigan will be, because they're built to do that. Then you have to be able to break open somehow, and it's just not creative. It's, to your point, like everybody knows what's coming when it's coming, and they can get more guys than we have to block at the spot faster than we can get through it. And yeah, I would love for Day to say, yeah, it's a problem. But
Yeah, but Ryan, here's the thing. You have to remember, at the beginning of the year when Notre Dame played us, they were playing a shell. Okay, and
yeah, yeah,
their thing was let's play the shell, let's play the two safeties back, let's just not let you throw over our head. And when you do that, that opens up the running game. That
hmm
opens up opportunities for the running game. And what's happened is teams are scheming us differently right now. What teams are doing is they're manning us up on the outside and they're selling out to stop the run. And the only guy who's really consistently demonstrated that he can beat man-to-man press coverage is Marvin Harrison Jr. And that's why we go to him.
yeah,
As good as Emeka is, Emeka hasn't clearly demonstrated that he can do that consistently. And Julian's Julian. Julian's not one of those guys. And Jackson Smith and Jig have been hurt, and nobody else has really stepped up. So what do we have? We have Cade Stover. We have Marvin, Marvelous Marvin. And then we've got a lot of, when we tried the running game and they're flowing downhill, you're run blitzing seven guys, eight guys are going zero coverage against us. You know, how many times did we throw a hot route last week? Once, maybe one and a half times, a 3rd and 10 to Marvin, and that quick flip to Julian in the slot. When teams are overplaying us to stop the run, we've got to punish them with the pass and back them off, because teams are not backing off like they were at the beginning of the year. And that's the big change that I think people have to realize is teams are scheming us differently, and we have to address it. That's why the running game was working so well in the beginning. It's because they were playing a shell, they were playing a light, they're only playing 6 people in the box. But when they're playing 7 people or bringing that 8th guy in, you have to change your tactics. And
yeah.
Dave's got to figure that out.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put a pin in that one because I think that's a really good point for the nugget that you had posted earlier this week as well. So there's a couple other things I wanted to just touch on from the media day and kind of my biggest takeaways from it, but definitely want to come back to that as well. Um, One of the things that I thought was noteworthy, and it doesn't really come as a surprise, was Tyleik Williams got a lot of praise from Ryan Day and Jim Knowles for his performance last week, and saying that he's earned a lot more reps. He's kind of coming into his own in that defensive line and becoming a presence, like he kind of flashed last year some. Um, but that was one thing that I took away, and then also just hearing Chip Trayanum going full time back to running back. Not sure, it was stated that Mine's injury is not very serious, but I think he can be a big kind of depth position running back that we need, for this home stretch, and can potentially come in and make a huge difference in that running game as well. And, see how hard he's able to run and what he's able to do in that running game. But do you see him kind of making that impact, making that stride? And then just overall kind of thoughts on Tyleik Williams and his performance from this weekend as well.
Well, Tyleek's been a guy I've been on for a couple of years. Love Tyleek. He is as talented a defense lineman as we have. He's one of those rare blends. Whenever we see those guys on those other teams, like those giant guys that can move as fast as they are on the defense line, we always say, how do we get one of those? Well, we have one of those. His name's Tyleek. His problem has been cardio. He hasn't been able to go more than 1 or 2 plays at full speed. They've been working hard with him. Now he's up to the point where he can go 3 or 4 plays at full speed, and you see what a difference it makes. And if he can stay out there a little bit longer, continue to make those impacts, he's got so much talent. So it's strictly a conditioning issue with him, and the more they can get him in condition, the more he's committed to that. Then he's going to be a big time player. As for Chip, I love Chip. Love Chip as running back at Arizona State. Love everything about the kid. I don't think it's going to make a big difference to him because, as we talked about earlier, we have issues on the right. I don't care if you have Jim Brown back there. If he's getting hit in the backfield, you've
Yeah.
got to change your tactics. And so I think it's a nice move considering the fact that Mayan is, a little banged up, nothing serious, but maybe needs a couple of weeks off. You're down to Trey, who's been hurt. He was limpid at the end of last week's game. So having Chip there, it will be a nice thing to have. Do I think it'll make a big? Is it a game changer or a big thing? I don't think so. Now watch Chip pop off and rush for
Right.
380 yards this week, and we'll come back and we'll do a podcast next week. Me singing Chip's praises, but I don't think it's a big deal. And that's not a knock on Chip. Like, there's no
Yeah.
bigger fan of Chips in the world than me, but I want to see him carry the ball, though. I'm excited to see it because I loved him at Arizona State, and I can't wait to see him carry the ball consistently for the Buckeyes.
Yeah. And the next few weeks are definitely the weeks to get those guys the reps, get those guys kind of get their legs under them, get them fresh so that as you go up against a team like Michigan, you have that depth. You have people that you're confident being able to come in and perform at the same level as your main guys. And I'm excited to see him. He played really well at Arizona State, and we've seen a lot from in the offseason about his praises and what he's been able to bring to the team from a linebacker standpoint, let alone a running back standpoint. And we've seen him in flashes on kickoff returns and stuff like that. And he's a hard physical runner, and we'll see what he can do. But to your point too, there's bigger problems than just the running backs on that. And you got to go back to the offensive line and figure out what's happening there to get those lanes opened up. And that's a pretty good transition here into the nugget that you had posted earlier this week, available at BuckeyeScoop.com on the Ask the Insiders board. So if you're a member, be sure to check that out for a more in-depth kind of breakdown of what Nevada was able to get from his contact this week. And if you're not a member, go ahead, again, check out BuckeyeScoop.com and join today so that you can have that access. But I know you had mentioned during it that, there's a lot of issues with the running game. Obviously, we've talked about the offensive line. And you had reached out to get a little bit more insight on kind of what's causing that and ways that it can be fixed that, maybe Ryan Day's thinking of it and he's just not saying it, but maybe he's not thinking of it. So if you can just give a little bit of a breakdown here of what you were able to find out and some of the insight you were able to glean.
Well, I think one of the issues, and this is again, it's obvious, for anybody who's watching the games. Well, you've got a quarterback, CJ Stroud, who does not have the ability to audible. And right now, our particular tempo right now on offense is go to the line, look false cadence, look what the defense is going to do, then turn to the sideline, get the real call, go back to the line, go to the thing, snap the ball with 2 seconds to go, 1 second, whatever. We're deep in the clock at that point because you just don't have enough
Yeah.
time to audible. And I think that's an issue. That's an issue for Ohio State in terms of him not being able to audible. Because what's happening is when you make that first false cadence, the defenses aren't fooled. They're not expecting you. You're not running off of that, and so they're waiting for you to make that second call. Then they're changing their defense to adjust to it anyway. And we're getting into some loser spots as we've talked about. I think one of the answers to that is to run tempo. And I've been calling for that. They practiced that. They practiced that all season long, but they really went after it last week. And I said when Ohio State goes to tempo, they're going to be a problem for Penn State. And what happened when they went to tempo, started going fast? Penn State did not have an answer for it. And Ryan was asked about that again this week, and he's like, "Well, they take a long time to place the ball, and it doesn't really make that much difference." I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. And defenses cannot get exotic with you. Defenses can't change personnel. And this Ohio State offense is a rhythm offense, and when you get going, you saw what Trey Henderson. Trey's bad, 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 bad. Then they get him into an unloaded box. They give him a look. Cade gets a little shade block on a couple of guys. Trey's in the house. 42 yards, touchdown, bang. Like, that's how we need to be running it. And I think we should be going fast.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly on the road. That's a solution, because think about it from the crowd standpoint. When you go deep into the clock, it just gives the crowd a chance to build up to that crescendo. And when you go fast, you take the crowd out of the game. You completely eliminate one of their biggest advantages they have of the crowd is by you eliminate that by going tempo. So I think for Ohio State, that's one of the answers. The second thing, we talked about this, before, but our guard play is not as good as it was last year. Right now, our guards are Matt Jones, who's clearly hurt. Matt is really hobbling, and it's really limiting our ability to pull. And Donnie Jackson, who's 19 years old and inexperienced. And last year it was Paris Johnson and Thayer Munford. And when your guards are not as good as they were last year, then it's going to hurt some of the things in your running game. So I think between predictability, between giving we don't have a chance to audible and get out of loser plays. We've got defenses
Yep.
selling out. We've got no constraint. What's the result going to be? The result's going to be an anemic running game, and that's where we're at. And I think they're going to have to change some things. And the good news is I think they've kind of gotten the message, and I think Kevin Wilson is really starting to exert himself this week especially. And I think we're going to see some changes. But that's a nugget for the premium members on the BuckeyeScoop.com board.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned the tempo as well, because as I was watching the game, I remember in the fourth quarter, Joel Klatt continued to harp on, oh, CJ Stroud needs to, take more time off before he's snapping this ball. He's snapping it too early in the play clock, and you need better time management, et cetera, et cetera. And as he's saying it, Ohio State's running tempo, they snap it with, I think, 25, 24 seconds left on the play clock and hit Emeka Egbuka on that deep pass to within the 5. And it was like, that's why you run tempo, because it's working, and I fully understand clock management, taking the time, but if tempo is what's going to score you points, you need to score points to win rather than just playing not to lose. And in that instance, in that fourth quarter, that's what we needed to do. And they did it incredibly well. And you saw the dividends that it paid. And I'd be shocked if we don't see more tempo. I mean, I think it'll be a mix, obviously, as the season progresses. But I agree. I think you have to go tempo. It's proven, when you run tempo with this team, with the playmakers you have, you're just going to run them out of the building. And whether it's Trevion Henderson, whether it's Cade Stover, Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, you've seen it at times for each of those different players, and you got to get those guys in a position to be able to take advantage of their athleticism and take over the game. But it starts with the offensive line. You've got to be more creative. You've got to trust CJ a little bit more to make those adjustments, and hopefully we see some of those here coming this week against Northwestern, and looking ahead as we get into the bulk of the November schedule, and obviously up until the game when you're going to need probably that a little bit more. But this weekend you have Northwestern. You've got a matchup that should be on paper pretty cut and dry, right? Weather might play a factor this weekend. I did look it up. It's supposed to be around 61 high, so good November weather. 80% chance of rain, but it does drop right around kickoff to, I think, less than 50%. So should be dry for most of the game at least, but you got some high winds, 20 miles an hour. So definitely something that is a factor when you go against a team that is inferior from an athletic standpoint, and can be a leveling factor in that sense. So do you see any of that kind of playing a role in this week, or how the game plan would need to adjust to kind of pick that back up?
Yeah, see, I'm kind of leaning Northwestern this week. I mean, not as from a win standpoint, but I think Northwestern's going to outperform the expectations, and I think Ohio State's going to underperform the expectations. I think life is about kind of managing the highs and lows. We came off a super high last week on the road, going on another road game to a team that's, like you said, is outmatched in every way. It's going to be hard for our guys to maintain that kind of focus, and I just think it's going to be the kind of game that maybe ends up a little closer than people think. Maybe it's 42-7. I know the line's 38. Maybe we win by 35 or 33 or something. And again, don't. The good news is Northwestern's so impossibly bad that there's no upset watch on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm of the opinion that this game will be closer than people think it's going to be. And again, we'll gladly be wrong when we win 100-0. But I think that this one has every earmark of a letdown game after a very emotional win last week at Penn State. Ryan's still going to want to get CJ's numbers. Ryan's still going to want to do it, but he's also going to want to rest some guys, not get anybody hurt down the stretch. And as you said, Northwestern's just a funky place to play, cold, windy, high grass. And, for them, this is their Super Bowl times 100 if they can even keep the game close. So I
Yep.
expect a good effort out of them. And I think it's going to be a little closer than people think. And we'll be scratching our head and complaining and getting ready for the next week after that as we continue our slog down to Michigan.
Yeah, I can imagine the boards if that is the case. So I'm hoping that it's not as close of a game as what you're saying. And even that is it's a very decisive win at the end of the day. And I think long term in the game, it's going to get out of control in my opinion pretty early. I think they're going to want to come out and set the tone and right some of those wrongs. And maybe this is a game where you try and get back to that running game and try and put an emphasis on there with high winds and high grass, and you just kind of lean very heavily on that group. But I'm predicting Ohio State covers. I think the second teamers maybe get a couple scores late in garbage time to cover, but I've got it 56-14. And fingers crossed that I'm right, because I would love for the starters to get out of there as healthy as possible, and for us to not tweak injuries or get anybody else missing a few weeks before we get into late November games and everything. But yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised, but they gave up 33 to Iowa, and that offense is really bad. So I think this Ohio State team will be able to score in bunches, and maybe even get a couple more turnovers, and potentially another defensive score as well.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll say, I think they'll do a lot of what you're saying. They'll line it up and try to run, and you're going to see even Northwestern, sell out and stop the run, and we're going to be going,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, even Northwestern is stopping a running game right now. And then CJ will go back and pass, and we'll beat them because we're just more athletic than they are, and we'll be able to pass it over their heads and score. But
Yep.
I've got it. I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair. I think it's going to be like 38-3 or 42-10 or something like that. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a lower scoring affair, and Ohio State doesn't cover. And like I said, and I'm rooting for you to be right, and gladly eat crow
Yeah.
when we have our podcast next week.
Yeah. 38's a lot, I will say. It's. I always
It's a
look at it and
it's a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot of points.
yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Ohio State gave up the cover with the late touchdown to Penn State last week, which was more than frustrating, I'm sure, to a lot of people. But yeah, I won't be surprised either way. I mean, I think Ryan Day's got something to prove again this week, and get back to what's working. And Stroud will have his numbers, Marvin will have his numbers. Egbuka, Stover, everybody will have some pretty decent numbers, I think, in this game. And who knows, we might even see Chip Trayanum run for 380, like you said.
Now, and look, we told you last week that Penn State was the play. We said that Ohio State always has trouble up there. That's not a 15.5 point game. And frankly, if you bet Ohio State and laid the points, you didn't deserve. I mean, Ohio State was losing the game with 8
Mm-hmm.
minutes to go. The fact that they were even in a position to cover that was like one of the miracle covers of all
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
So, I think we got to keep things in perspective. That's always a tough place. Northwestern's is always a tough place. Just gotta keep winning, move along, and get to Big Blue and take care of business.
Yes, sir. We got a couple more weeks left in November, so definitely a lot more to cover here over the next few weeks. But looking forward to having more conversations as we learn more about this team, and hopefully we get some more improvement on the offensive line and the running game here to get back into back to what we need to before a team like Michigan that's going to come out and want to punch us in the face again. But as always, Nevada, appreciate you joining. That's going to do it for us here today. But hopefully we'll talk again soon, and we'll have you back on before it's too long.
Thanks, Ryan.
As always, thank you, Scoop Nation, for your continued support. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the channel or leave us a 5-star review and rating on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're looking for even more great content, as I mentioned at the top of the show, then you need to head on over to BuckeyeScoop.com, become a member if you're not already, and check out the Ask the Insiders board, and I promise you will not be disappointed. I'm your host, Ryan McClency, and until tomorrow, go Bucks.